Order in the court. The gavel hit the wooden desk with a sharp crack that echoed through the crowded courtroom. All eyes turned to the frail woman in a hospital gown being wheeled in. Her face was pale, her breathing slow. Beside her stood 3 young adults, 2 tall young men and a young woman with trembling hands. The room buzzed with whispers. Are those her children? Why bring a sick woman here? At the judge's bench sat a man whose presence made the air heavy. His suit was perfectly pressed, his gaze cold and unshaken. This was Chief Judge Chukwemeka Nwosu, a billionaire whose wealth and influence reached every corner of Lagos. Even the lawyers shifted uneasily when his sharp eyes swept across the room. The triplets, Chinedu, Chima, and Adiz, held their mother's hands tightly. Chinedu's voice shook but did not break as he faced the judge. My lord, we are here to defend our mother. The man who betrayed her must answer today. A hush fell. The courtroom door opened and in walked the man they all dreaded, their father. His confident smile sent a chill through the room. He wore an expensive agbada and carried the arrogance of a man who believed he could never fall. Judge Nwosu raised an eyebrow. This court will hear the truth today, he said firmly. And no amount of wealth or power will bury it. Adiz's heart pounded. Would the judge believe them? Would the man who left their mother to suffer finally face justice? Before anyone could speak again, the judge leaned forward and said, Bring forth the evidence. The door at the side creaked open. Someone stepped in holding a sealed brown envelope, an envelope that could change everything. And then, silence. If you haven't subscribed yet, we'd love for you to join our community. Just hit the subscribe button. Through our stories, we share hope and shine a light on children and women who faced abuse around the world. Motivate us by subscribing and turning on the notification bell so you never miss a story that matters. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from, and how did this story touch you? Years before that tense day, everything looked different. Ngozi had once believed in love. She married a man whose charming smile and sweet words made her heart race. In the early years of their marriage, they lived in a small but happy flat in Enugu. Their laughter filled the rooms, neighbors admired them as the perfect couple. When Ngozi gave birth to triplets, everyone called her blessed. Chinedu, Chima, and Adiz brought joy and music into their lives. But beneath Iza's smile hid a heart growing cold. The more success he found in his business, the more pride took root. He began staying out late, giving excuses about business meetings. Ngozi tried to talk to him, but he brushed her aside. You worry too much, he would say. Just take care of the children. Little signs of betrayal started to appear. He stopped giving her money for household needs. He became impatient with the children's laughter. When she asked him why he no longer prayed with the family, he snapped, I'm busy making money so you all can eat. Ngozi's friends noticed the change. Her closest friend, Ifeoma, whispered one evening, Ngozi, are you sure everything is well? It looks different. Ngozi forced a smile. He is just tired. But inside, her heart grew heavy. One rainy night, after waiting hours for him to come home, she found a strange perfume on his shirt. The scent was not hers. Before she could question him, he stormed into the house, his eyes filled with a cold rage she had never seen before. Ngozi, he said, his voice like a slap, pack your things. You and those children are no longer my responsibility. The room froze. The rain outside hammered the windows like a warning drum. He pointed at the triplets, his face twisted with disgust. Those children are not even mine. Ngozi's knees weakened. Chinedu and Chima clutched her wrapper. Adiz began to cry. Isa's words cut deeper than the storm's thunder. Stay in that hospital and disappear, he hissed. You and those children were the biggest mistake of my life. Before Ngozi could speak, he turned and slammed the door. The thunder roared again, this time inside her heart. The door banged so hard the frame shook. Ngozi stood frozen, her breath coming in short gasps. The triplets clung to her wrapper, their small fingers trembling. The rain outside poured harder, like the sky itself was weeping for them. "Mommy, why is Daddy angry?" Adis whispered, her voice small and afraid. Ngozi swallowed the lump in her throat and forced her lips to move. "It is not your fault, my children." But her voice cracked, and tears rolled freely down her cheeks. That night, she sat awake on the edge of the bed, her mind racing. Isa's words echoed like a curse, "Those children are not even mine." How could the man she loved and trusted say such a thing? She stared at her children, innocent faces finally asleep despite the storm. She would not let them see her break. The next morning, Ngozi went to Isa's office to beg for an explanation. She found his secretary avoiding her eyes. "Madam, Oga is busy," the woman said, almost in a whisper. But Ngozi could hear voices inside. She pushed the door open before the secretary could stop her. He sat comfortably with a young woman wearing bright red lipstick and a short ankara skirt. They both looked startled, but he quickly leaned back, his eyes turning to stone. "What are you doing here?" he barked. Ngozi's heart pounded. We need to talk." "Why are you saying such things about our children? Why did you leave home like that?" The young woman giggled softly, then looked away. He stood and walked around his desk. "Ngozi, you and those children will not tie me down. I have a new life now. You," he pointed at her chest, "are no longer part of it." Ngozi staggered back, holding the door frame for support. You can't mean that. We built everything together. What about our vows before God?" "God," he scoffed. "If God cared, he would have given me real children. Those triplets are not mine. Go and look for the real father." The word sliced through her like a blade. She ran out before her tears could drown her in front of them. The bright sun outside felt like mockery. Days turned into weeks. He cut off all financial support. Landlords began knocking for rent. Neighbors who once smiled now whispered behind her back. "Maybe it is true," one woman said loudly enough for Ngozi to hear. "Maybe those children are not his." Ifeoma visited one afternoon with a small bag of rice. "Don't mind them," she said gently. "God knows the truth. Hold your head high." Ngozi nodded, though her heart felt like shattered glass. One evening, her body gave up. Fever burned through her, and she collapsed in the small living room. Chinedu rushed to her side. Mommy, wake up." Chima and Adis cried loudly, their voices carrying into the night. A neighbor helped rush her to the hospital. The doctor frowned after examining her. "She needs rest and proper care. Her blood pressure is too high. Stress is killing her." Ngozi drifted in and out of sleep. In her fog, she heard the triplets whispering prayers. Chinedu held her hand tightly. "God, please save our mommy. Don't let her leave us too." Outside the hospital ward, Is appeared the next morning, but not to help. He stood at the door with the same cold look. "You can stay here and disappear," he said quietly, almost like a hiss. "I have already removed your name from the house papers. You and those children mean nothing to me." Before anyone could respond, he turned and walked away, his expensive shoes clicking against the hospital floor. Ngozi's heart sank, but the triplets felt something else, a fire they had never known. Chinedu clenched his fist. "He will regret this." Chima's voice shook, but his eyes burned. "One day, he will face what he has done." Adis wiped her tears. "We will protect mommy. No matter what." That night, a heavy silence filled the hospital room. But in the shadows of their young hearts, a fierce determination began to grow. Far away, a man they had never met, Chief Judge Chukwemeka Nwosu, signed a contract that would soon bring their paths together in a way no one could yet imagine. And while the triplets whispered their quiet vows beside their mother's bed, a new storm was already gathering, one far louder than the rain that first drove their father away. The next week stretched like an endless harmattan. Ngozi lay in the hospital bed, her body slowly healing but her spirit bruised. The triplets, barely teenagers, moved like small adults. Chinedu fetched water and food. Chima learned to calculate hospital bills. Adi sat by her mother's side, reading Bible verses in a soft, steady voice. One morning, the doctor pulled Chinedu aside. "Your mother is stable for now," he said gently. "But she must avoid stress. Too much worry can bring another crisis." Chinedu nodded, but inside his chest boiled a quiet rage. How could he tell the doctor that the man who caused all the stress had vanished, leaving only pain behind? Back home, Is wasted no time. He sold the family shop without a word. He moved into a bigger house with the same young woman Ngozi had seen in his office. Her name, rumor said, was Stella. He hosted loud parties, his laughter spilling out into the street like a challenge. Neighbors talked. "Did you hear? Is has bought a new car." "Yes, while his wife is dying in hospital," another replied with a hiss. Ngozi heard the whispers when Ifeoma came to visit. She turned her face to the wall. "Let them talk. God will fight for me," she whispered. But her hands trembled under the bedsheet. Weeks later, hospital bills piled higher than the bed rails. Chima, who had been quiet all along, finally spoke one night. "We must find a way. We can't let them throw mommy out." Chinedu stared at the worn tiles on the floor. "I can run errands for the pharmacy near the gate. They give small pay. I will help mommy write thank you cards," Adi said, her small voice fierce. "People might give something if we show kindness." Together, the triplets found small ways to keep their mother's care going, carrying water for nurses, sweeping the hospital compound, selling groundnuts in small wraps. Their actions stirred quiet admiration among the staff. One evening, Dr. Okoro, a kind-hearted senior doctor, stopped by with an envelope. "I have watched you children," he said. "Your love for your mother is rare. Here is something small to help." Adi's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you, sir." But outside those hospital walls, Isa's cruelty deepened. He spread rumors that Ngozi had been unfaithful, that the triplets were not his. His words reached even distant relatives. Some believed him, others simply turned away to avoid trouble. Ngozi's cousin, Amoka, came once and stood awkwardly by the bed. "Sister, people are saying things, terrible things. Maybe you should beg him to take you back. For the children's sake." Ngozi's face hardened for the first time. "I will not beg a man who threw away his own family. God sees." Amoka left in silence. One late night, while the triplets dozed off on a bench outside the ward, a tall man in a dark suit walked quietly into the hospital. His steps were firm, his gaze sharp. Chief Judge Chukwemeka Nwosu was there on a private hospital visit to see an old friend. He paused when he saw the three children asleep, their arms wrapped around each other. A nurse whispered, "Those are Ngozi's children. Their father abandoned them." Judge Nwosu's brow furrowed. He watched them for a long moment. Something in their tired faces stirred a memory of his own childhood hardships. He said nothing, but his heart marked them. Days later, a hospital notice arrived. If Ngozi's bills were not cleared soon, she would be discharged against medical advice. Chinedu read the paper, his hands trembling. "They will throw mommy out if we don't pay." Adi's voice cracked. "Where will we go?" Before Chima could answer, footsteps echoed down the corridor. He stood there, arms crossed, a cold smile on his lips. "So," he said loudly, drawing the eyes of nurses and patients, "this is where you hide. I came to see if you are still breathing." Ngozi struggled to sit up. "Why are you here? To mock me?" He stepped closer, his voice dripping with scorn. I came to tell you that the house is sold. You and these bastards will not step foot there again. Addis gasped. Daddy. Chinedu leapt to his feet, anger flashing in his eyes. We are not bastards. Isa's laugh was sharp as broken glass. You will soon find out what you really are. The hospital hallway fell silent, every ear straining. Is leaned closer to Ngozi and whispered a final line, words so cruel they made her heart cease. Then he turned sharply and walked away, leaving only the echo of his shoes and the stunned faces of his children. Ngozi's chest tightened until she could hardly breathe. The whisper Is had left behind cut like a hidden knife. Next time you see me, it will be in court, and you will lose everything. Her eyes blurred with tears, but before she could speak, her blood pressure monitor began to beep wildly. Nurses rushed in, gently pushing the triplets aside. Mommy! Addis cried. Don't leave us. Stay back, children, a nurse warned as they walked. The triplets stood frozen, fear pounding in their hearts. Chinedu's fist clenched. Chima's eyes brimmed with tears he refused to shed. Minutes later, the beeping slowed. The doctor turned to them. She is stable, he said, wiping sweat from his brow. But her heart cannot take this kind of stress again. That night the hospital corridor felt colder than usual. Chinedu paced like a restless lion. He wants to drag Mommy to court. He wants to take everything. We can't let him win. Chima stared at the flickering hospital light. But what can we do? We are just children. Addis wiped her wet cheeks. We may be children, but God is with us. We will not keep quiet. They held hands and prayed quietly, their small voices rising in the still night. Far away, he sat in his new house, his legs stretched on a leather chair. Stella poured him a drink. Are you sure this is wise? She asked softly. He smiled coldly. Wise? It's perfect. When the court declares those children not mine, I will keep all my properties. Ngozi will have nothing but her shame. Back at the hospital, the triplets began to plan. Chinedu remembered the man in the dark suit who had paused to watch them that night, Chief Judge Nwosu. The nurses whispered about his influence. I saw the way he looked at us, Chinedu said the next morning. Maybe he can help. But he doesn't even know us, Chima replied. Addis straightened her back. Then we will make him know us. Later that week, Chinedu found Judge Nwosu in the hospital garden, reading quietly. Heart pounding, he stepped forward. Sir, excuse me, sir. The judge lowered his paper. His eyes softened when he saw the boy's determined face. Yes, young man. Chinedu bowed slightly, like he had seen adults do. Sir, please, my name is Chinedu. My father wants to take everything from my mother. She is sick inside. We need help. Judge Nwosu listened without interruption. When Chinedu finished, the judge placed a steady hand on the boy's shoulder. I have heard you, he said. Go back to your mother. Tell her not to be afraid. Justice is slow, but it comes. Chinedu nodded, a small spark of hope rising in his chest. The next days moved quickly. Papers arrived from Isa's lawyer, a court summons. He was filing for full ownership of every property and denying the children as his. When the doctor read the papers, he frowned deeply. This man has no mercy. Ngozi pressed the papers to her chest, trembling. God will fight for us, she whispered. Finally, the court date came. The triplets dressed carefully in clothes Ifeoma had pressed for them. Ngozi, still weak, was lifted into a wheelchair. The courthouse was large and intimidating. Reporters crowded outside, eager for a story of betrayal and power. People whispered as the triplets wheeled their mother inside. When they entered the courtroom, Is was already there. He sat with his lawyer and Stella at his side, a smug smile playing on his lips. The judge's gavel struck. Order in the court. The triplets froze. On the bench sat none other than the same man from the hospital garden, Chief Judge Chukwuemeka Nwosu. Chinedu's heart raced. Addis gripped her mother's hand. Chima felt his knees weaken. The judge's voice rang through the room, deep and commanding. This court will hear the matter of Is versus Ndozi. All at once, the air seemed to hold its breath. Judge Nwosu fixed his sharp gaze on Is. Before we begin, he said slowly, I want to hear from the children who stand to defend their mother. The entire courtroom turned toward the triplets. Cameras flashed. A heavy silence fell, so thick it felt like a storm before lightning. Chinedu stepped forward, his heart pounding. My lord, he began, his voice trembling but strong, we are here to speak the truth. Our father has lied. Suddenly, he slammed his hand on the table, his voice like a roar. Those children are not mine. Gasps filled the courtroom. Reporters scribbled furiously. Judge Nwosu's gavel came down hard. Bang! Silence, he commanded, his eyes blazing. He leaned forward, his next word slicing through the heavy air. This court will not tolerate lies or intimidation. Mr. Is, your words today may decide your fate. The triplets stood motionless, their mother's hand trembling in Addis' grip, as the judge prepared to speak the next sentence, one that could change everything. The courtroom was so still that even the ceiling fans seemed to hold its breath. Judge Nwosu leaned forward, his deep voice rolling like distant thunder. Mr. Is, he said slowly, you have denied these children as yours. This court will see proof before any more words. Isa's jaw tightened. Proof. Let them bring it. I know what I said. Ngozi's chest rose and fell sharply. Addis squeezed her hand, whispering a silent prayer. Judge Nwosu turned to the triplets. Children, speak without fear. Truth needs no disguise. Chinedu stepped closer to the witness stand. His legs shook, but his eyes did not waver. My lord, my mother raised us alone while he, our father, left her to suffer. We may be young, but we know who we are. We know the truth of our mother's heart. The judge nodded slowly. Go on. Chima held up a small, worn notebook. This is my mother's hospital record from when we were born. His name is written here, in his own hand. He signed it. Gasps rose from the gallery. Reporters craned their necks. Isa's lawyer jumped to his feet. My lord, anyone could write a name. Judge Nwosu's gavel cracked the desk. Sit down. This court decides what is evidence. Addis stepped forward, her voice small but steady. My lord, he left our mother when she was sick. He told her to disappear. We begged him for help, but he only brought more pain. Is that what a father does? The judge's gaze softened for a brief moment. Then he turned to Is. Do you deny signing these records? Is shifted uncomfortably. That was years ago. Anyone could. Before he finished, the side door of the courtroom opened. All heads turned as a tall man in a white lab coat entered, holding a sealed brown envelope. The clerk announced, Dr. Hosson from Royal Diagnostics. The doctor approached the bench and bowed slightly. My lord, here are the DNA test results requested by the court. Isa's face went pale. His lawyer whispered urgently, but Isa's eyes stayed fixed on the envelope. Judge Nwosu broke the seal with deliberate care. The sound of tearing paper seemed loud enough to echo. He read the document silently. Then, without looking up, he said, the DNA proves, with 99.9% certainty, that Chinedu, Chima, and Addis are indeed the biological children of Mr. Is. The courtroom exploded in murmurs and gasps. Reporters rushed to scribble every word. He sprang to his feet, his voice cracking. This is a setup. Someone paid for this. Enough. Judge Nwosu's voice thundered. The gavel struck like a hammer. He looked directly at his eyes cold and unyielding. You not only abandoned your lawful wife during illness but slandered her name and tried to strip her of her property. This court will not ignore such wickedness. Ngozi covered her face with trembling hands. The triplets held her shoulders, tears spilling freely. The judge continued, the properties you sought to claim remain in your wife's name. Furthermore, this court will consider charges of fraud and emotional abuse. Stella, who had been sitting proudly beside Is, quietly shifted her chair away. Is's shoulders slumped. For the first time, the arrogance drained from his eyes. Judge Nwosu turned toward the triplets. Children, today you showed courage and love that even many adults cannot match. You have defended your mother with honor. The law stands with you. Adis whispered, thank you, God, her small fingers gripping her mother's hand tighter. Ngozi lifted her tear-stained face. Thank you, my lord, she said softly. Judge Nwosu struck the gavel one final time. This court is adjourned. The sound echoed through the courtroom like the end of a long, painful storm. Outside, the late afternoon sun bathed the courthouse steps in a warm golden light. Chinedu looked at his siblings. We did it, he said, his voice trembling with relief. Chime nodded, a slow smile spreading across his face. Mommy can rest now. Adis hugged her mother, whispering, he cannot hurt us anymore. Ngozi held them all close. For the first time in years, she felt her heart breathe again. Behind them, he stood alone in the emptying courtroom, his fine agbada no longer a shield, his power no longer enough to hide the truth. And as the triplets wheeled their mother into the fading light, the whispers of the crowd carried only one message. Kindness and truth may bend, but they never break.